It sounds like you're creating a high-stakes narrative where the main character, Jason, is pushing back against personal and professional attacks from his ex-wife Natalie and her new partner Ryan. Jason is navigating rumors, underhanded tactics, and a business-threatening smear campaign while rebuilding his career. He's determined, tactical, and leveraging his resilience to regain control. Here's a possible rewrite of the section you provided to help tighten the flow and sharpen the emotional stakes. The email I received from one of my top clients hit like a punch to the gut. My stomach clenched as I read it, the words dripping, with ambiguity but clear enough to send a wave of dread through me. They were pulling out of a major contract, citing concerns about my company's stability. The phrasing was vague, but the message was unmistakable. Ryan's influence was already starting to make waves. I stared at the screen for a moment, the weight of the loss settling on my shoulders. The old me might have panicked, let self-doubt creep in, but not this time. I wasn't going to let Ryan or Natalie see any weakness. Instead, I felt the flicker of resolve take root. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I picked up the phone and dialed the client. "I received your email," I said, keeping my voice even. "Let's talk about the concerns you have." There was a pause on the other end. "Jason, it's nothing personal, but we've been hearing things, rumors about financial instability, possible buyouts. It's enough to make us second-guess things." "Rumors?" I repeated, my jaw tightening. "I assure you, those are just rumors. My company is stronger than ever, and I can provide whatever documentation you need to back that up." The client hesitated, but his tone softened. "If you can provide proof, we might reconsider." "I'll have everything to you by tomorrow morning," I said. "And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out directly. Transparency matters." By the end of the call, I felt a slight sense of relief. The contract wasn't lost, yet, but it was clear. Ryan's game was just beginning. If I didn't act quickly, he could cause some serious damage. The next morning, my lawyer called with some promising news. "You were right to dig into Ryan's LLC," he said. "I found something interesting. Several of his backers have questionable reputations, and at least one is involved in a pending legal dispute." A spark of satisfaction flickered in me. "Anything we can use?" "There's enough here to raise red flags, especially if Ryan's positioning himself as a legitimate player in your industry." "Good," I said, already making plans, in my mind. "Let's put everything together. It might come in handy." Hanging up, I realized that Ryan's arrogance might just be his greatest flaw. He had overestimated my passivity, assuming I wouldn't fight back. But now, I had the tools to turn the tables. Not only could I defend myself, I could strike back. The rest of the day was a blur of preparing for the investor meeting, strengthening relationships with my clients, and working with my lawyer to build a case against Ryan's interference. By the time I hit the pillow that night, I felt something I hadn't in a while: control. Natalie and Ryan had underestimated me. They were about to regret it. I spent the following days shoring up my client relationships. Ryan's whisper campaign had sowed doubts, but I wasn't about to let that stand. I personally reached out to each of them, scheduling video calls to walk through every detail of my company's financials. It was time-consuming, but it paid off. Every client I spoke to left reassured. Ryan's whispers couldn't compare to the solid facts I presented. But I wasn't just on defense. I was gathering ammunition. I began quietly gathering intel on Ryan. He was new to the industry, and his brash moves had caused more stir than he realized. Connections in my network came forward with valuable tidbits: unpaid invoices, shady deals, even a couple of angry clients. The more I dug, the clearer it became. Ryan wasn't just a threat, he was careless. But I wasn't ready to move, just yet. Timing was key. Then the next blow came. An anonymous article, poorly written but pointed. It painted me as a failing businessman, struggling to keep my company afloat. It reeked of Ryan's tactics. No subtlety, just a blunt force attempt to tear me down. I didn't react immediately. Instead, I forwarded the article to my lawyer. We need to trace this, find out who's behind it. I have a few ideas already, he said, his voice dark with the anticipation of the hunt. While he worked on that, I focused on the upcoming investor meeting. I needed this deal not just for the money, but for the message it would send. If I could close this, I'd have the leverage I needed to really go after Ryan. The week before the meeting, Ryan escalated his efforts. An old colleague of mine reached out, warning me that Ryan had been fishing for information about past projects. It was brazen, almost laughable, but I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of knowing it bothered me. Thanks for the heads up, I replied. Let me know if he contacts you again. It was a subtle move, but it would make him second-guess who was still loyal to me. As the investor meeting approached, I was more prepared than ever. My lawyer had traced the smear article back to a PR firm Ryan had hired, one with its own set of questionable practices. It was perfect. Ryan thought he was building momentum, but he was setting himself up for an inevitable collapse. I walked into the meeting an hour early, not because I was nervous, but because I knew the value of controlling the room. The atmosphere was mine to set. As the investors arrived, I greeted them confidently, shaking hands and meeting their eyes. They'd heard the buzz, the smear campaign, but now they were curious. People loved an underdog story, and Ryan had made me exactly that. The presentation was flawless. By the end, doubts had melted away. They were on board. Well, Jason, one of the investors said as they wrapped up, this is impressive. I've seen a lot of pitches, but this one feels solid. I'm in. I shook their hands with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The deal was done, but as I left the conference room, my phone buzzed again. The game was far from over. This revision tightens the focus on Jason's strategic mindset, emphasizing his growing confidence and the counterattack against Ryan and Natalie. It keeps the tension high and reinforces the theme of resilience. How does this feel for the direction of your story? I received a text from my lawyer at the perfect moment. Got the full details on Ryan. Call me when you're ready. I stepped outside into the cool afternoon air, already eager to hear what he had to say. My lawyer wasted no time in diving right into the details. Ryan's LLC is a disaster, he said. He's drowning in debt, and his backers are starting to bail. He's also made some legal missteps. Nothing huge yet, but enough to hurt his reputation if it gets out. Exactly what I needed to hear. I'm ready to move forward, I said, already strategizing my next steps. That evening, I had a PTA meeting at Logan and Ava's school. Normally, I'd have skipped it, but tonight was different. Ryan and Natalie would be there, expecting me to hang back like I always did. They didn't know I had a bombshell ready to drop. The room was buzzing with small talk when I arrived. Parents chatting, teachers shuffling papers, the principal herding everyone into their seats. I spotted Ryan and Natalie at the front, laughing with another couple. Their smugness was palpable, and I relished the moment of anticipation. Once the principal finished her announcements, I raised my hand to speak. I'd like to share some exciting news, I said, standing up. All eyes turned to me. Natalie's smile faltered briefly before she masked it, glancing at Ryan for reassurance. I recently closed a major investment deal for my company, I continued, keeping my tone steady and confident. This partnership secures our future and sets us up for substantial growth in the coming years. There was polite applause, but the real reaction was on Ryan and Natalie's faces. Natalie's smile froze, while Ryan's face contorted as though he'd just swallowed something sour. But that's not all, I added, locking eyes with Ryan. I'd also like to clear up some rumors that have been circulating, claims about my company's stability and leadership. Let me be clear. Those rumors are false. The numbers speak for themselves, and the support of my investors proves that. The room went silent. I could feel the tension radiating from Natalie and Ryan. They were cornered, and they knew it. After the meeting, as people began filing out, Natalie approached me. Her usual composure was slipping. "Jason," she said, forcing a smile, "that's great news about your company." "Really?" I replied, my tone polite but firm. "Thanks, Natalie. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you focus on the truth." Her smile wavered, and she stepped back, clearly uncomfortable. Ryan didn't even bother to approach me. He was too busy pretending to check his phone, avoiding eye contact as I walked to my car. I couldn't help but smile. The bombshell had dropped, and the fallout was just beginning. Ryan and Natalie had made their move, but now the tables were turning, and I wasn't done yet. By the next morning, the ripple effects of my announcement were already spreading. Word traveled quickly in our shared circles, and the buzz wasn't just about my new deal. It was about how I'd effectively shut down the rumors Ryan and Natalie had been spreading. It wasn't a win they could ignore, and I knew it wouldn't be long before they tried to counter. Sure enough, just after lunch, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Natalie. "Jason, can we talk? It's important." I stared at the message, for a moment debating whether to respond. Natalie rarely initiated contact unless she had an angle, and I wasn't about to play into her hands. After a few seconds, I typed back a curt reply. "Busy? What's this about?" Her response came. Quickly, Ryan mentioned something about business conflicts. "I think we should clear the air before things get messy." Messy? That was rich coming from her. They were the ones who tried to sabotage me, and now she was acting like the voice of reason. Still, her sudden concern piqued my curiosity, so I decided to humor her. We agreed to meet that evening at a coffee shop downtown. I arrived early, finding a quiet corner table where I could observe the room. When Natalie walked in, she was dressed to impress as usual, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. But there was something different about her demeanor. Less confidence, more tension. "Jason," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "What's this about?" "Natalie?" She hesitated, looking around as if making sure no one was listening. "Look, I know things have been tense lately. Ryan might have overstepped, and I don't want it to escalate." "Overstepped?" I repeated, my tone even. "Natalie, he didn't just overstep. He tried to undermine my business, spread false rumors, and poach my clients. That's not overstepping. It's sabotage." Her face flushed, but she quickly regained her composure. "Ryan can be impulsive. He thought he was helping us secure opportunities. It wasn't personal." "Not personal?" I leaned forward, my voice firm. "He used my name, my reputation, to push his agenda. It doesn't get more personal than that." Natalie fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding my gaze. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, but instead she switched tactics. "Look, I didn't know the full extent of what he was doing, I swear. But if you're willing to let this go, I'll make sure he backs off." I almost laughed. "Let it go? Natalie, I'm not the one who started this. But I can promise you this. I'm going to finish it." Her eyes narrowed, and the tension in the air thickened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done playing defense," I said, my voice cold. "You and Ryan made a mistake thinking I'd just roll over. I've already gathered enough evidence to prove his interference, and if you keep pushing, I won't hesitate to take it public." Natalie's jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Jason, think about the kids. Do you really want to drag this out?" "The kids?" I snapped. "The only reason I'm not dragging you both through the mud already is because of them. but don't mistake my restraint for weakness." The conversation ended soon after, with Natalie storming out. I stayed behind for a few minutes, finishing my drink and letting the adrenaline settle. She had come expecting to manipulate me, to talk her way out of the mess she and Ryan had created. Instead, she walked away empty-handed. But now this was no longer just about Natalie. Ryan was the real issue, and I had no intention of showing him the same courtesy. That night, I called my lawyer. "Alex," I said, my tone decisive, "it's time. Let's expose Ryan." Alex didn't hesitate. "I've already drafted the documents. We'll start by alerting his backers and business partners about his unethical practices. Once that's done, we can escalate if necessary." "Perfect," I said. "Let's make sure this sticks." Over the next few days, Alex and I worked tirelessly, contacting Ryan's backers, providing them with evidence of his shady dealings and legal missteps. The response was swift. Several of them pulled their support, citing concerns about his credibility. Meanwhile, I reached out to key figures in our shared network, quietly sharing the truth about Ryan's attempts to sabotage me. The word spread quickly, and Ryan's reputation, once bolstered by Natalie's influence, began to crumble. Then came the icing on the cake. At a business event later that week, I ran into Ryan. He greeted me with a forced smile, but I could tell he was tense. "Jason," he said, extending a hand. I didn't take it. "Ryan," I replied. "How's business?" His smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. "Busy as always." "Good to hear," I said. "Though I imagine it's harder to stay busy without certain backers, isn't it?" The color drained from his face, and for a moment he stood there, speechless. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. As I watched him leave, a feeling of satisfaction washed over me. The tables had turned, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was in control. Ryan and Natalie had underestimated me, and now they were paying the price. But this wasn't the end. Not yet. The silence was the first thing I noticed. The calls, the emails, the constant whispers about my business stopped. At first, I thought it was the calm before another storm. But the truth was simpler. Ryan's world was starting to collapse. By midweek, my phone rang again. This time it was Natalie. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the best of me. "Jason," she began, her voice strained. "We need to talk." "About Ryan?" I asked, keeping my tone even. She sighed. "Jason, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I cut in, my voice sharp. "Natalie, angry doesn't even begin to cover it. Your husband tried to destroy my career, my reputation. He put my business at risk, and now that it's backfiring, you expect me to care about how it's affecting him?" She was silent for a moment, then said, "I didn't know it would go this far." I scoffed. "You didn't know? Natalie, you stood by and let him attack me. And now you're surprised there are consequences?" She softened her tone. "Jason, I know you don't owe me anything, but this is spiraling. Ryan's been talking about lawyers, retaliation, specifically. That caught my attention." "Retaliation?" I echoed, sitting up straighter. "For what? I haven't done anything illegal. Can Ryan say the same?" Her breath hitched, and I could tell I'd struck a nerve. "Jason, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I just want this to stop." For a moment, I almost felt sympathy for her. Almost. But then I remembered the smug looks, the snide comments, the months of sabotage. This was no longer my problem to fix. "Natalie," I said firmly, "this stopped being my problem the moment you and Ryan made me your target. If he wants to involve lawyers, let him. I've got nothing to hide. Can he say the same?" She didn't answer. After a few moments of silence, I ended the call. Whatever consequences Ryan and Natalie were facing, They brought it on themselves. Later that day, Alex called with another update. "It's worse than we thought," he said, his voice tinged with something like awe. "Ryan's LLC is bleeding money. The investors who haven't bailed are demanding audits, and there are some discrepancies." "Discrepancies?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing concrete yet, but enough to raise red flags. If the audits turn up anything, Ryan could be in serious legal trouble." I leaned back in my chair, processing the information. Ryan wasn't just losing his reputation, he was about to lose everything. "Keep me updated," I said. "This isn't over yet." The fallout only intensified in the following days. Ryan's LLC was all but finished, and Natalie's attempts to smooth things over only seemed to make matters worse. I heard that she tried to set up a meeting with one of Ryan's former investors, only to be turned away at the door. And just when I thought things couldn't get more chaotic, I received an unexpected email. It was from Ryan. The subject line was simple: "Let's talk." I stared at it for a while, weighing whether or not to open it. Curiosity won out in the end. The message was short and blunt. "Jason, I think we've both made mistakes. Let's sit down and work this out like adults. Name the time and place." Mistakes? That was rich. I thought about ignoring it, but something told me this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. Ryan had been cornered, and now he was trying to talk. Fine, I'd let him talk, but this time I'd be the one calling the shots. When I agreed to meet, I made sure it was on my terms. A neutral location, no lawyers, no Natalie, just the two of us. If he thought he could bluff his way out of this, he was about to learn just how much the tables had turned. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown, one I picked specifically because it wasn't Ryan's usual scene. When I arrived, he was already sitting in a corner booth, looking different. His usual air of confidence was gone. He looked disheveled, his suit wrinkled and his posture slouched. The man who once walked into every room like he owned. It now seemed like a shadow of his former self. "Jason," he said, standing up to shake my hand. His grip was weak. I didn't bother pretending to be polite. "Ryan," I replied, sliding into the seat across from him. "Let's get to it." He cleared his throat, taken aback by my directness. "Look, I think we both know this situation has gotten out of hand. Mistakes were made on both sides, and I think it's time we de-escalate." I raised an eyebrow. "De-escalate? After you spent months trying to sabotage my business, trashed my name, and tried to turn my clients against me? Now you want to de-escalate?" He flinched, but quickly recovered. "Jason, come on. You've made your point. The investors have pulled out, my backers are gone, and my LLC is dead. I get it. You've won." "There it is," I said, leaning forward. "This isn't about winning, Ryan. This is about accountability. You didn't just come after me. You came after my livelihood. You tried to ruin me, and now you want a truce? You're lucky I haven't taken this to court." His jaw tightened, but I could see it. Just for a moment, the old Ryan surfaced, the arrogant, calculating man who thought he could get away with anything. But he knew, deep down, that the tables had turned. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice strained. "I want you to own up to what you've done," I said coldly. "I want you to publicly admit to the lies, the sabotage, everything. I want a written statement sent to every client, every backer, and every partner you've misled. And I want you to stay out of my business, for good." Ryan's face darkened, but he nodded slowly. "Fine. And one more thing," I added, leaning in closer. "If you ever try to come after me again, personally or professionally, I won't just defend myself. I'll bury you." He didn't answer, just stared at me with a look of resentment and defeat. After a few seconds, he nodded again. "You'll have your statement by the end of the week." "Good," I said, standing up. "Then we're done here." I didn't wait for him to say anything else. The fallout from Ryan's public admission was swift and unforgiving. His remaining credibility crumbled. His backers pulled out completely, and word spread quickly throughout our industry. Natalie, once the picture-perfect wife and business partner, found herself on a sinking ship with no one to turn to. For me, it wasn't just a win. It was closure. After years of enduring their games and manipulations, I was finally free. Free to focus on my kids, my business, and the life I'd fought so hard to rebuild. Logan and Ava were the first to notice the change. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they could sense it. The tension that had been hanging over me was gone. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Ava looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, why are you smiling so much these days?" I laughed, ruffling her hair. "Because things are finally good, sweetheart, and they're only going to get better." Dean, sitting across from me, raised his glass in a silent toast. His support had been unwavering through it all, and I couldn't have done it without him. He smiled, pride in his eyes. "You did it, Jason. You took back your life." "Not just mine," I said, glancing at Logan and Ava. "Ours." In the days that followed, life began to settle into a new normal. My business thrived, my relationships grew stronger, and Ryan and Natalie faded into the background. They'd underestimated me. But more than that, they had underestimated what I was fighting for: my family, my integrity, and my future. One quiet Saturday afternoon, watching Logan and Ava play in the backyard, it hit me. Winning wasn't about defeating them. It was about reclaiming my peace, my purpose, and my pride. And that's exactly what I'd done.